Good day to you, brave adventurer, and welcome back to D&D Storytime on YouTube. I'm your friend Dave Makes Noises. Now let's take a quick grounding breath. Because today we're asking, what action did your character take during a D&D game that shocked the DM? Part 1. I wish I could claim this character as mine, but it was one of the players at my table who pulled this stunt that left us all dumbstruck. This is a long story, so settle in, get yourself some popcorn. We were playing Curse of Strahd, which for those of you who don't know is a very gothic horror Dracula-inspired campaign featuring the Count Strahd von Zarovich and his unending quest to win the heart of his brother's would-be bride, Tatiana. Long story short, Strahd killed his brother, and Tatiana threw herself off the castle battlements to escape Strahd. Now he's trapped in the lands he rules over, cursed to see Tatiana reincarnate century after century into different women who have no memory of that fateful night. Tatiana's latest incarnation is Irina, and she asked our party to escort her across the realm to an abbey where she hopes she'll be safe from Strahd's advances. That's your goal. Protect Irina and defeat Strahd. Spoilers for the module are below. We make it safely to a town about halfway across the realm where we decide to stop for the day to rest up and get supplies for the rest of the trip. While we're poking around, we learn that the local church has had its saints' bones stolen, which rendered the ground no longer a safe haven against the undead. We go on a hunt for the bones and manage to track them down to the attic of the coffin maker's shop, so my rogue snuck inside to steal them and unwittingly awoke the nest of vampire spawn that had been hiding inside to attack the town. My rogue seizes the bones and throws them out the window to our waiting Aarakocra cleric and leaps after them as the vampires are hot on her tail. The cleric begins flying as fast as she can to the church, hoping that replacing the bones will restore the wards while the rest of us try to hold the spawn off. We found out the hard way that they would regenerate all the damage we dealt to them. There was no sunlight to stymie them, the cleric was off delivering the bones, and the paladin had used up all his spell slots on the trip that day. My rogue's Sacred Flame cantrip kept missing as well, so we had no way to stop their regenerating. As we're slowly being drained of hit points, we hear a thunderclap, and Strahd himself comes galloping across the sky on a nightmarish horse made of smoke and flames, and we know we're done for. The cleric manages to replace the bones. It turns out that their magic only guards the church, not the town, so we retreat, racing to the church as Strahd bears down on us and his minions follow, hot on our heels. We make it to the church just in time, and Strahd and the vampires slam into the holy barrier. They disappear, and we breathe a sigh of relief, a moment too soon. Strahd and his minions return with hostages. "Give me Irina," Strahd bellows, "or more will die." He gestures to one of the spawn, who snaps the neck of its hostage before draining her of blood. The corpse is thrown into the church and lands at our feet. The DM gives us 30 seconds in real time to decide what we'll do, and we falter. We can't settle on what to do, so when the time is up, Irina turns to us. "I'll go with him," she says. "I won't let more innocents die because of me." She goes, despite our protestations, and my rogue and the cleric and the barbarian vow we'll rescue Irina as soon as we can. The paladin is silent as he watches her step across the holy barrier. And then he speaks. "I swore an oath to never let Strahd win." And with one motion, he draws his bow, nocks an arrow, and shoots Irina in the back with a critical hit. The DM screams. The players are screaming, especially the paladin's player, who hadn't expected it to actually work. Strahd bellows an oath of vengeance as Irina falls dead in his arms, and he lifts her body onto his horse. He orders the spawn to destroy the town and gallops off into the night sky. The DM had to end the session there because the module basically revolves around the idea that you're going to protect Irina. Where do you go from there when the players kill her? We are still suffering the fallout of that decision. I wouldn't have wanted it to go any other way. This happened a few days ago. Let's set up the background just for showing how freaked out everyone got. So my group is playing the Horde of the Dragon Queen set, and here's our party. Human monk, human druid, half-elf cleric, tiefling bard, dragonborn fighter, and me, the halfling ranger. My character's background includes the fact that she doesn't like dragons, and her grandmother, a sorceress, killed one single-handed. This has been a rather boring campaign, however, as my halfling has been the one making sure we get enemies back alive for both interrogation purposes and also so that they have the chance to repent for their actions. Not really wanting to fight and generally doing things that you'd think a neutral good alignment bordering on lawful good would suggest. Except when there's anything with dragons. She does not like dragons. Her backstory is all about how she was raised by her halfling family, dwarves, and essentially Legolas, all of whom taught her to hate and kill dragons. Dragonborn are fine, she was raised to tell the difference, but her grandma was if Bilbo Baggins was a lady sorceress who didn't take no shit, killed Smaug solo, then took up the dwarves' offer to stick around. So all throughout this campaign, the only time she's been anything other than pleasant is when she's been a wee salty hobbit getting pissy that these cultists are trying to bring Tiamat into her plane of existence. She's even tried to convert the cultists they've captured from Tiamat to Bahamut because, in her words, if they want to worship a scaly beast so badly, let's at least let it be one that won't try to release destruction on this world. Most of the rest of the party has had moments of shock and horror. The druid eats the corpses of enemies while in beast shape and keeps a collection of severed heads that he intends to talk to. The cleric has more than once asked, why don't we just join the Tiamat cult or just let cultist victims be sacrificed just to see what happens, etc. This didn't quite shock the DM and party. They found it hilarious, especially since I, out of game, explained that we could then use the cults to eat one another alive and make it a good way to shake the religion of the more doubtful cultists. I know a lot about battle strategy, and a good way to make a military lose all will to fight is to destroy their faith in their religion. Well, that's messed up, dude. Well, the other evening, we were on our second night exploring the cultists' cavern. I'm off exploring ahead on my giant spider mount, but I discover one of the 3 lead cultists and 4 of his guards. I'm on the ceiling, and they're all praying so they don't see me. The DM says that this would be a good time to back out of the room and regroup with the rest of the party to attack. I'd lose the element of surprise, but at least they wouldn't kill me. Now, most smart people would listen to the DM. I make it a rule to always listen to the DM. No one told my halfling this rule because this particular guy had already humiliated her once, and he was a half dragon. So while these 5 unarmed men are praying, she sneak attacks them and uses Hail of Thorns to hurt all of them. Well, that's a nat 20, so double any damage done on the hit. So I roll my 1d6 and get max damage, plus 3 piercing damage, plus her foe modifier of plus 2, plus the Hail of Thorns doing a 1d10, which also ends up doing max damage to all 5 guys. Initiative is rolled and I go first. I use another person's dice so that the DM knows I can't fudge another nat 20 because the dice I normally use have been on a hot streak for 5 nights. And it's another nat 20. Another maximum damage on that, but only 8 on the Hail of Thorns damage. Rest of the party shows up, and since they can't hit me, they aim for the party. Things finally end. I'm up on the ceiling with no damage because Spider gives the finger to melee, and we finally get a good look at the room we're in. It's almost a cathedral room. Dragon carvings everywhere, very intricate. Up until this point, my little halfling had been under the assumption that this was a rather new cult to the area, maybe a year at most. Nope. This is older than that. She's officially done. The rest of the party went to the next room and didn't realize she wasn't with them. Well, eventually, when the monk and fighter see it's a dead end, aside from a massive clutch of dragon eggs, and no halfling to want to destroy them, they go back and see that she's done a pretty art project on the walls. This is where everyone gets freaked. So on the walls are all sorts of disturbing messages written in the blood of the guys we just fought. Tiamat is wrong. Your god is false. If she couldn't help them, then she won't help you, etc. And all the guys we just fought are hanging on the wall, with their weapons being the only thing to hold them up. They've also been decapitated, their heads hanging from the ceiling by spider silk. Needless to say, both monk and fighter are freaked, but they came back because there's monsters. Dragon monsters, and our druid tried stealing one of the eggs these dragon monsters were guarding. So our freaked out monk and fighter are there, internally freaking because they see my little halfling completely drenched in the blood of her enemies, her spider also pretty bloody, and the amount of blood graffiti that wasn't there 5 minutes ago. They finally explain that the party needs help. She gets back on her spider, and off she goes to instantly murder the guard drakes without a single flying flip to give. All the rest of the party sees is a blood-soaked hobbit riding on her palfrey-sized spider coming in to steal the two creatures they've been having trouble with. And that's where we left off. I can't wait for next week when the rest of the party gets to react to my halfling's art project, or how she's effectively going to commit some serious genocide by destroying every dragon egg in that massive clutch unless we needed them, or how she's going to try to skin the baby dragons once she cracks the eggs open. TLDR, my sweet little halfling that everyone thought was harmless has finally shown that she has a massive hate boner for dragons and is plotting genocide while also condemning an entire cult through fear tactics. My character was a fighter with an odd but strangely effective combat style. He wore heavy armor, and he used a whip and spiked shield. In a large fight, the opposing wizard summoned a large scorpion to attack our wizard. Instead of trying to attack it, my character, Xanchus, ran up and grappled the scorpion's stinger. The DM was like, "You're going to do what?" I successfully made the grapple and even started to drag it away from the wizard. I just held it there until our cleric came over to bash, while the now free spellcaster blasted the bad guy while he was trying to fend off the rest of the group. Another time, a different character, with a very low wisdom, started talking to a ghostly spirit. During the talk, the spirit mentioned that he could regain physical form if we put blood into a cup that was sitting on the altar. My character, Tiswill, agreed, cut his wrist a little, and bled into the cup without hesitation. Then, he was somehow able to convince the rest of the group to do the same. He is very charismatic, but this was ridiculous. We even bled two of the group that were unconscious from a sleeping trap. The spirit became fully solid, and Tiswill started calling him Vampire Dude. We were allowed to stay in his chambers to rest safely, and he also healed the party of all injuries as a thank you. We encountered him again at the very end of the adventure when he showed up as we were in a difficult battle with a mummy. He stopped the fight, led us out of the chamber, and showed us how to leave the dungeon again as a thank you for restoring him. The DM was not expecting anyone to actually voluntarily bleed into the cup and had expected the spirit to have to plead and beg for the entire dungeon, but he rolled with the change in his storyline beautifully. As a side benefit, everyone that bled into the cup instantly learned the ancient language that the spirit spoke, giving the group a way to communicate in total secrecy. During that adventure, the group's normal leader was abducted before we fell through a sinkhole into this dungeon. Because of that, nobody was making any decisions, so Tiswill just did whatever came to his mind, and the rest of the group followed him, even knowing how foolish he was. At least someone was making decisions. A hearty hello, and thank you for saving us an attunement slot, and an even bigger thanks for doing so until the very end of the video. If you're looking to connect with our community or share some stories, you can find the center of our sweet little microcosm over on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. If a character shocked the DM in your game in some way, you are welcome to share that story in the comment section below, and it may end up in a future video on this topic. If you're a DM or a player looking for a group, MrRipper's Group Finder Discord server may have the resources you need to find your group and start adventuring. I hope that this week you make time to honor your curiosity and begin learning something new that excites you. If you're thinking to yourself, wow, that Dave Makes Noises fellow sure is swell. I'd sure like to know more about the noises he makes. First of all, oh my gosh, thank you. Secondly, you can find me on TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. You can also catch me on the streams listed in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. We're so glad you joined us today, and we'll see you next time.